Now switching from the Pro Tour to the Challenge Tour, and the action got underway in Hildesheim with the latest 4 Challenge Tour events over the weekend, and we saw 4 different winners from the 4 events: Berry Van Peer, John Henderson, Ron Meulenkamp and Dragutin Horvat winning the 4 titles. Fallon Sherrock also making the headlines as well, becoming the first woman to hit a 9-darter in a PDC competition during that weekend of events. But what caught your eye from the latest round of Challenge Tour action that we saw?
Well, start with some of the champions. You mentioned John Henderson and had never won a singles title in PDC competition before this past weekend. Yes, this is not the Pro Tour. It is the Challenge Tour, but a title is still a title. And he's also, in addition to that title, a couple more quarterfinals. He's now top of the order of merit. Very well could have won 2 titles. He was playing well enough on Saturday to add a second title to the one he won on Friday before going out in the quarterfinal to Dragutin Horvat. Real poor performance from him in that match, averaging a mere 103 against Horvat's near 106. That's what it took to beat him. His other quarterfinal loss to the American Danny Lauby. Real consistent performance, obviously, on the way to the title, averaging over 94 in his first 5 matches. It did drop off the next few, but it's a long day. It was the second event on Friday, and he'd already played through to a quarterfinal in the first event. So you can see his performance dropping off, but he still was good when he needed to be to get over the line and win that. Mentioned another one of the winners, Ron Meulenkamp. On the Pro Tour, has never even made a final. I've lost count of how many semifinals he's made. I think he's made more semifinals than anyone who hasn't made a final, taking over the old honor that Mensur Suljovic held for a while, as always losing semifinals. But now on the Challenge Tour, he made it through to a final, winning a title. Also was the runner-up, losing to John Henderson in the other final that he made it through to. On top of that, another quarterfinal. So in the last 3 events, final, title, quarterfinal, not too shabby for 3 consecutive events over a long couple of days. On the way to that title, it was really an impressive set of matches. His last 16, he dropped off significantly to a 73, but the other matches, 95, 84, 94, 97, 90, 92, 98, real consistent level of performance. Beat some big names, Ryan Murray, Colin Osborne, Eddie Lovely. It was a good set of matches on the way to that title, and easily the most consistently good he's played that last 16 aside. But he's finding ways to keep winning, and to won through to 3 consecutive quarterfinals, 2 finals, a title, really impressive. But I'll end with one player who didn't actually win a title this weekend. It's a player that you mentioned earlier in the show. You were disappointed not to see him on the Players' Championship averages because he hasn't been there, but still 16th now in the Challenge to Order of Merit after another good weekend, quarterfinal, last 16 as well, and that's Daryl Pilgrim. He's second in averages. Yes, he's a full point behind James Hurl, who we mentioned after the first weekend had opened up a big lead in terms of averages. It's narrowed a little bit, but Pilgrim's right there in second, one of only 3 players over 90, nearly over 91. And if you look at that run to the quarterfinal, after his first match, 96, 92, 98, 95, 93. The 92 was a fraction below what James Hurl's averaged for the season, but only a fraction of a point. Basically, he averaged every single one of those matches above what the person leading the overall averages in the Challenge Tour so far this year has been able to do. He went through an entire tournament after that first round. Okay, he finally went out in the quarterfinals, but that is a really good level of performance. That's the type of level of performance that Chris Dobie won the Masters at. It won't win every time. It won't win the majority of tournaments, but it will win the majority of matches, and it'll put you in that position to win the majority of matches. And sometimes that will be enough, like it was for Dobie in the Masters. It wasn't on Saturday enough for Daryl Pilgrim to leave with the title, but he got him to a last leg decider in that quarterfinal. It got him through to the quarterfinal, and it's why he's now second in averages and has to be considered one of the favorites every time he steps on the Aki if he keeps playing that well.
Yeah, go on, Daryl. 16th on the Challenge Tour Order of Merit, but second on the table where it matters, the average is only one more spot to climb for him to get to the top there. And yeah, only 4 events at the weekend as opposed to the 5. The Pro Tour took centre stage on the Sunday, but that is now 9 Challenge Tour events this year, 9 different winners, and we're not seeing someone make that huge mark at the start of the season like Scott Williams did last year, winning 3 of the first 9 and opening up that big lead at the top. You look at that order of merit at the moment and it is very tight. You've got John Henderson £100 clear of Christian Kist, and then Ron Meulenkamp a further £100 back. So very close at the minute, and hopefully this is going to be what the Challenge Tour is going to be like for the rest of the year. We're going to get that exciting race with a lot of players vying for top spot, the spot in the Grand Slam, and then getting into the top 2, getting to Ali Pali and the tour cards for next year as well. And I'll start with the only player that made 2 finals at the weekend, lost in the second final on the Friday, came back the next day, won the 3rd event of the weekend, the first event on the Saturday, and his first Challenge Tour title in 9 years. And that is because we've seen Ron Meulenkamp on the main tour for most of that time in between. He was hovering around about the 45 to 55 mark in the rankings, regularly making the World Championships, but we didn't quite see him make that next step, and that is to make the 32 player majors, like the match play, like the Grand Prix, and ended up missing out on the World Championships at the end of last year, dropping out of the top 64 and didn't get close to winning back his tour card at Q School. And then that transition from playing on the Pro Tour for a long time to then going on the Challenge Tour, it can take some getting used to again. But to make a final and then win a title, and then he got to a quarter final in the last event, so 3 consecutive events on the Challenge Tour, that takes a lot of doing. So I think he'll be happy with the weekend's work for him. And for Dragutin Horvat and John Henderson, it is their first Challenge Tour titles, as you mentioned, for Hendo, his first singles title of any sorts, and this is his first year on the Challenge Tour. He won his tour card at the very first Q School 2011, lost it at the end of last year, and it's been that hangover from the World Cup win with Peter Wright 2021. He went the opposite way to what Johnny Clayton did. He kicked on, won major titles, got into the Premier League, got into the top 8. For Hendo, he didn't get that bounce from winning the World Cup, and he's a player that you just heard Ian White mention as well. He feels that the pandemic had an impact on his game and his ranking as well, and that's why he's ended up losing his tour card. But 2 quarterfinals and a title for him, again, he'll be happy with that, and he's top of the rankings. And another player that dropped off the tour at the end of last year, Barry Van Peer, the Dutch Open champion for this year as well, and really putting in some positive results after that setback of not getting his tour card back. And I think he had something like 112 average in the quarterfinal on that run to the titles. That's one that sticks out. And just lastly, a word on Fallon Sherrock as well, making history with that first 9 data from a female player in PDC competition. And yeah, got to say, it was a shame that we are still seeing some people, and it is a small minority, sending in those abusive messages on social media. And it was great to see Fallon back on the Challenge Tour, because I think she knew coming into this year that more competitive action was needed for her. There wasn't going to be the held over World Series events for her this year like there was last year, which dominated parts of her calendar. So I'm glad for her that the focus for 2023, after missing out at Q School, is getting back on the Challenge Tour, testing herself against the best players that haven't got those tour cards. And 32nd on that list of the order of merit after 2 weekends, a few good runs, the 9 data in there as well, the 99 average in the game after that to beat Max Hopp as well, and off the back of it stuck around in Germany, got that late call up to play in her first Players Championship event at the start of this week as well. So yeah, I think that's all good experience for her going forward as well.